Senator from Oklahoma.
Mr. President, a few days ago, our nation stopped and remembered Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's entirely appropriate for us to do. It's a holiday set aside to be able to not only remember, but to reflect and to try to figure out, where are we now? This year is especially significant. 50 years ago this year, Dr. King was assassinated in April of 1968. There's a lot of things that have changed in that time period. And quite frankly, as a nation, we've learned a lot about race. We no longer, as a nation, talk about 3/5 of a man anymore, rightfully so, and we're appalled by our history in that. We no longer have separate water fountains set up in restaurants, or tell certain people because of their background, their family, their skin color, they can take food to go, but they can't come in and sit down. We've come a long way in hiring. We've come a long way in just our communities and our schools. But the work is not done. We still have a long way to go, quite frankly. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was bold enough to be able to challenge the church first, and then the nation, and then the world. And we have an issue around the issue of race. And he was going to challenge us to confront it. Rightfully so. He challenged us on the issue of racial justice, on poverty, on education. But he also challenged us on the way that we speak out on issues. And I think we lose track of that as a culture. And quite frankly, as a Senate and as a nation, we're losing track of one of the things that Dr. Martin Luther King challenged us on. There is a right way to confront issues and a wrong way to confront issues. Dr. King did something revolutionary. He pushed a community to confront injustice the right way. And he won. He made radical statements. Statements like darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Dr. King said, I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Love is the only force capable of transitioning and transforming an enemy into a friend. For whatever reason, we lose track of Dr. King's statements about love is a powerful thing. And we start as a culture responding with hate to respond to hate. And when someone says something hateful, we respond back with something more hateful back at them. Doesn't actually solve anything. And we lose the great model that he really set for us in that. If we want to make enemies friends, only love can do that. Only relationships can do that. Only pressing a friend to do the right thing can do that. Now, is that happening in our culture? No. It is in spots. But it's not hard to go on any of our social media sites at any moment and to be able to see the challenge in our social media sites are not love driving out hate. It's hate attacking hate. It's remarkable to me. I just glanced at some of the things just of late as I was preparing for this conversation, and I looked backwards at a few of the posts that are on my own social media sites. Controversial statements that I made, like on the first when I did a post that just said, Happy New Year. A stinging controversial post that was responded to by someone saying, loser, liar, traitor, how much money did you take from Russia, comrade? To my statement of Happy New Year. I made a statement about how kids that came in under DACA should be treated differently. These are kids that didn't break the law. These are kids that are like the 4-year-old riding in the back seat of the car when their parent was speeding. When the parents pulled over, they don't give the kid a ticket. And I made just a quick post about that. And the response to that, among many, was, what is with his hair color? Dude, get it done professionally. You look terrible. I just have to say to you, dude, this is done by a professional. God gave me this hair color. And so there is no bottle involved in this one. It's his work. And I'd call him a pro. There's all this talk back and forth about where we're going to go as a culture. And we're losing Dr. King's legacy of hate doesn't drive out hate. Only love does that. Now, there's a lot of conversation in this body as well, saying things had never been worse in the Senate and in Congress. I would disagree. Just after the Vice President Burr left office, he challenged the Secretary of Treasury to a duel where he shot the Secretary of the Treasury dead in a duel. In 1850, in the chamber just right down the hallway here in what's called the Old Senate Chamber here, in 1850 they were working on a compromise, and Senator Foote and Senator Benton were in an argument, and so Senator Foote reached into his desk in the middle of the argument and pulled out his pistol while screaming at Senator Benton, to which Senator Benton jumped on one of the desks that's still in this room still today. He jumped on the desk, pulled open his coat, revealing, "I don't have a weapon, shoot me," on the Senate floor, to which they wrestled Senator Foote to the floor and took his gun away from him. People can say it's never been worse. I can assure you it's been worse. But what we do have responsibility for is our time setting the tone for difficult debate in this moment. The arguments that happen on this Senate floor and the violence on this Senate floor, including Senator Sumner being almost beaten to death with a cane just before the Civil War, set a path into the Civil War for the nation. What's the path we're taking the nation on right now in our debate? And as a nation, I have a simple reminder that's not mine, that's of a powerful American leader named Dr. King, who said, "Hate does not drive out hate." For anyone who's looking at what's happening in our culture and in politics right now, saying, "If only I say something more hateful than the last guy, this will get better," you've missed his point. Dr. King was deeply moved by Scripture, and there's multiple examples of it in his writings and in his speeches. But he quoted passages over and over again, like from 1 John chapter 4, "Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another." Psalm 34:8, "Taste and see that the Lord is good." Over and over again, he came back to Scripture as just a simple reminder that things can be different for us. And he challenged the church in moments like his letter from Birmingham jail, and he challenged culture. In fact, we lose track of the fact that during the civil rights movement, Dr. King was working with both parties to establish platforms for both parties that would respect the dignity of all Americans. It's a good path that's been set for us. In the middle of our conversation about Dr. King, I would hope that we would remember it. Let me make one quick side note as well. It's kind of a fun note for those of us in Oklahoma, because the story of Dr. King, many people may know, almost didn't happen the way that we heard it did. Because in 1953, just finishing up seminary in the middle of his doctoral work when he was just Martin Luther King, not Dr. Martin Luther King yet. He was still working on his work at Boston University, his doctoral work. He came to a small church in Oklahoma City that was well respected in the civil rights movement, Calvary Baptist Church. In fact, in 1952, Calvary Baptist Church hosted the national conference of the NAACP and had Thurgood Marshall there as their speaker. And in 1953, though, Dr. King was interviewed there to be one of the pastors at Calvary Baptist Church. And the elders of the church heard him, read about him, met him, and then turned him down. This is my favorite quote from one of the elders of the church. They said they didn't think he had enough gravy on him yet. He was too young, not experienced enough. That was in 1953. 10 years later, he was standing on the mall right down the street saying, "I have a dream," leading the entire country. I say that to say, sometimes we have this assumption that we're in control. We're not. God's in control. He has a path and a plan that sometimes even when we hear no and hear hard things, we find out he's got a path and a plan that may look different than ours. I would only challenge us as a body to be able to do the right thing, the right way, and to see where that takes us As it says in Psalm 34, to taste and see that the Lord is good, to do it the right way. And let's see how this works out together. It's a simple reminder and a simple admonition to a body that could use some words from Dr. King, and see if we can put them into practice together. With that, Mr. President, I'd yield the floor.